This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Wednesday, August 28th, 2024. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
Trump pushes his digital trading cards as Harris pushes to make housing more affordable. I'm John Stolnis in Washington.
Leaders in Texas targeting potential election fraud.
I want our voters to know that their vote matters.
I'm Clayton Neville.
Jack Smith has filed a new indictment against Donald Trump over his bid to undo the 2020 presidential election. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
An immigration policy set up by President Biden has been shut down by a judge, but for how long? I'm Katie Clark with details.
A company whose stock is up more than 3,000% over the past 5 years will report quarterly earnings today. I'm Peter Schacknow.
2 workers were killed and another seriously injured in an explosion at a Delta Airlines maintenance facility. I'm Shirley Adler.
All ahead on America in the Morning. Trump agrees to muted microphones in that September 10th debate on ABC TV. Meanwhile, the former president and Kamala Harris made very different pitches to potential voters. John Stolnis has the latest from Washington.
By popular demand, I'm doing a new series of Trump digital trading cards. You all know what they are. We've had a lot of fun with them.
In a 2-minute video released by the Trump campaign, the former president selling digital trading cards, memorabilia for his fans.
It's called the America First Collection. 50 all-new stunning digital trading cards. It's really something. These cards show me dancing and even me holding some bitcoins.
Meanwhile, the Harris campaign released an ad touting her plan to make housing more affordable for Americans.
I took on the big banks who exploited people in the housing market. And today, corporate landlords buy hundreds of houses and apartments, then turn them around and rent them out at extremely high prices. I will fight for a law that cracks down on these practices. We will end America's housing shortage by building 3 million new homes and rentals.
She announced her plan for housing last month and called for a tax incentive for home builders to construct starter homes and $40 billion in federal money for local governments to build housing. The campaign also announced Harris and running mate Governor Tim Walz will sit for an interview with CNN's Dana Bash at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursday. It's her first sit-down interview since replacing President Biden atop the ticket 38 days ago. In Michigan yesterday, Trump running mate Senator J.D. Vance said Harris has had opportunities to make the country better, yet she hasn't.
The message from this crowd and this state of Michigan is you had your chance, you're failed, and we're not giving you a promotion. And Donald J. Trump is coming back to clean up your mess, Kamala Harris, and it's going to start right here in the state of Michigan.
After endorsing Trump over the weekend, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and former Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard are joining the Trump transition team. Regarding RFK Jr.'s role, Vance believes Kennedy has interesting things to say about issues like obesity, mental health, and addiction.
I think it's a little premature to talk about specific roles, but look, I hope RFK has a role because I think he's a smart guy. I think he's fundamentally a good guy, and I'm glad to have him on the team.
John Stolnis, Washington.
In what surely won't be the last of its kind, leaders in Texas are touting efforts to protect against potential voter fraud as we get closer to the November election. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott has long touted the importance of election integrity.
The integrity of elections is so essential to our democracy.
The governor says it's not a partisan issue.
One thing that all of us should agree on, whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, or an independent, is that we must have trust and confidence in the outcome of our elections.
This week, Governor Abbott announcing that the state has cleared more than 1 million names from the state's voter rolls. This part of his pledge to clean up the election process in Texas. And after state legislators passed SB 1 3 years ago, that law was labeled as one of the most restrictive election laws in the country. State lawmakers spoke with KXAN TV about the governor's move.
This false narrative that there's all these undocumented folks that are registering to vote, that our election system somehow is rigged, which is not.
I want our voters to know that their vote matters, their vote's going to be counted, and there's going to be transparency in the process.
Now, according to the governor, the names taken off the voter rolls include people who've moved out of the state, are dead, or aren't American citizens. Meanwhile, the Latino civil rights group LULAC is asking the DOJ to investigate the state attorney general's office in Texas for allegedly violating the Voting Rights Act. State AG Ken Paxton accused of carrying out illegal searches surrounding voter fraud against LULAC members. Paxton says it's part of his office's commitment to restoring integrity to Texas elections. I'm Clayton Neville.
The top stories of the day are sponsored by Sleep Number. It's Sleep Number's biggest sale of the year. Save 50% on the Sleep Number limited edition smart bed only at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com. Special Counsel Jack Smith files a new indictment against Donald Trump. That and more when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Welcome back. You're with America in the Morning on where those triple-digit high temperatures can be expected today. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
A large area of high pressure continues to sit over the southern United States today, and this feature will be able to funnel in the heat from eastern Texas through southern Illinois and Indiana, across much of Tennessee and Georgia, and even into the Carolinas and Virginia, where high temperatures in the upper 90s and even over 100 in spots can combine with uncomfortably high humidity to create dangerous conditions. Most of the region should stay dry today, but showers and some thunderstorms can occur from the eastern half or so of Texas toward the central Gulf Coast, as well as across the Florida Peninsula. Thunderstorms can turn severe today within two areas as a couple of disturbances continue to make progress across the nation. In the easternmost zone, storms from southern parts of New York and lower Michigan to New Jersey, central Indiana, and even the nation's capital can produce damaging wind gusts and hail into the night. Over the northern plains, the severe impacts can also include tornadoes within storms that develop this afternoon and tonight from the Dakotas to the far western portion of Minnesota. A spotty thundershower is also expected in the area from eastern Iowa through Illinois today, with much of Kansas and Missouri more likely to face dry conditions. Most of the western United States will also be in for a dry day today. However, a potent disturbance tracking near the northern border of Montana will bring some showers to that part of the state, with rather nice conditions across the Pacific Northwest. A rather quiet day is expected for the West Coast as well, with monsoon thundershowers once again building around the Four Corners states. In Pittsburgh, today looks hot with some sunshine, but watch for an afternoon thunderstorm that may contain damaging winds with a high of 93. For San Francisco, any early low clouds give way to sunshine with a high of 71. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Remember to follow us wherever you get your podcasts: Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. Special Counsel Jack Smith has filed a new indictment in Donald Trump's January 6th election interference case following last month's Supreme Court immunity ruling. More on the story from Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani.
The indictment keeps the same criminal charges against Trump, but narrows the allegations against him, removing references to Trump's interactions with the Justice Department. The Supreme Court said last month that Trump is entitled to immunity for that conduct. Still, the indictment keeps the allegations that Trump tried to pressure then Vice President Mike Pence to refuse to certify the electoral vote count. Chief Justice John Roberts wrote last month the interactions between the two men amounted to official conduct, for which Trump is at least presumptively immune from prosecution. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
A Biden administration plan to help undocumented immigrants with a pathway to citizenship is now in limbo after a Texas judge blocked the program from continuing. Katie Clark is following details.
The Biden-led program is called Keeping Families Together, which helps immigrant spouses of U.S. citizens who move to the United States without going through the proper legal channels to stay in the United States during the process of becoming citizens, rather than go back to their home country and wait through the legal process. The group America First Legal and 16 Republican attorneys general sued in a Texas court to stop the program. The judge halted it for 2 weeks, and it could go for longer. The prosecutors say that the policy is unconstitutional and violates federal law. Currently, illegal immigrants who apply for citizenship must leave the country and be readmitted in order to get permanent status and immigration benefits. This affects around 1 million people who are married to U.S. citizens. Biden's policy allows the undocumented spouses who have been married to U.S. citizens for 10 or more years to have deportation protections and apply for temporary work permits. I'm Katie Clark.
Weight loss drug gets a shot in the arm from Eli Lilly when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Welcome back. You're with America in the Morning. The Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments has a team of specialists in investing, financial planning, estate planning, and more. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. In for Jessica Ettinger today, and with much anticipation on Wall Street, here's CNBC's Peter Schacknow.
It's the event investors have been looking forward to with great anticipation, the latest quarterly earnings report from chipmaker and tech bellwether NVIDIA. That doesn't happen until after today's closing bell, meaning another cautious day of trading could be ahead on Wall Street. That's because NVIDIA, which is up nearly 32-fold over the past 5 years, has gotten credit for lifting the tech sector and the market as a whole. Ray Wang, principal analyst at Constellation Research, says NVIDIA will likely be increasingly seen as an individual play rather than a tech and market proxy because of its dominance in artificial intelligence chips.
It may impress the street, but it's not going to bring anyone else with it, because what's happening here is unlike the internet. Right? With the internet, it was open, it was decentralized, there were lots of players, things were coming down in price. Here it's the complete opposite. NVIDIA's done a good job. It's centralized, it's closed, it's more expensive, there's only a few players that are going to win, and that's why the stock will do well.
Whether or not NVIDIA has detached itself from the rest of the market, stocks have been doing well, with the Dow at a record high and the S&P 500 closing in on one. But now is the time to approach the market with caution, according to Catherine Kaminsky, portfolio manager and chief research strategist at Alpha Simplex.
I think from our side, those of us that follow the technical signals across different asset classes, there's still a lot of concern for us in the sense that equity signals have become more noisy. We do expect more choppiness around as we move into the potential cutting season. So I think that investors are just a little nervous about what's going to keep equities at their highs.
While investors await those NVIDIA results after today's closing bell, they'll be getting a fresh read on a number of well-known retailers, with Foot Locker, Kohl's, Abercrombie & Fitch, and pet product seller Chewy all scheduled to report their results this morning.
Peter, weight loss drugs will be huge for pharmaceutical companies. There's been a new development from a major player in the industry. Tell us more.
The development comes from pharma giant Eli Lilly, and it involves its weight loss drug Zepbound. Consumers will be able to buy it directly from Lilly at a discounted price, with the two smallest doses costing $399 and $549 per month. Mizuho Securities health equity strategist Jared Holtz explains how it will work.
It's going to expand access. I mean, these are for patients that probably cannot get Zepbound through insurance or through Medicare and Medicaid. So it's a vial. It's not one of these pens that's super easy to inject, but it's still going to improve access to it, a lot more of the population here.
Now, you'll still need a doctor's prescription for both the drug and the needles required to inject it, but marketplace supplies should be sufficient, since the direct-to-consumer version will simply be in vials and not in the pre-filled injection pens that are harder and slower to manufacture.
Thank you. CNBC's Peter Schacknow in for Jessica Ettinger. Major retailer announces a change in its diversity program. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. Tragedy on the tarmac after a fatal explosion at an airline facility in Georgia. Correspondent Shelley Adler reports.
2 workers were killed and another seriously injured in an explosion at a Delta Airlines maintenance facility near the Atlanta airport. The airline says it's working with authorities to investigate what happened, citing unnamed sources. WSB-TV reports that a tire on a plane exploded early Tuesday morning. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution reports that several Atlanta fire units and police went to the scene at the maintenance hangar near Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta Airport early this morning. Delta says in a statement that it's heartbroken and it's working with local authorities to investigate what happened at the wheel and brake shop. I'm Shelley Adler.
Home improvement giant Lowe's announced it is making changes to its diversity program, with some speculating it was due to the company caving into activist pressure. Correspondent Lisa Dwyer reports.
It's the battle of I said, they said. Ravi Starbuck, a conservative political commentator who has gone after companies like Tractor Supply and John Deere, took credit for the changes announced by Lowe's, saying that he had contacted a Lowe's executive last week with his plans to expose Lowe's over topics such as hiring policies and funding for Pride events. Lowe's said the company had already been discussing changes to its policy for over a year. Over the last week, Lowe's has also knocked down a different claim spreading on social media, in which a digitally altered image quoted Lowe's CEO as saying that conservatives who didn't like Lowe's values should instead shop at rival Home Depot. Lowe's responded that their CEO, Marvin Ellison, who is black, did not make that comment and that everyone is welcome at Lowe's. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
America in the Morning for Wednesday, August 28th, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay, senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
2 former opponents have joined Donald Trump's presidential transition team. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Democrats release a new video and plan a battleground state bus tour.
Russia retaliates as the Ukrainian offensive rages. I'm Clayton Neville.
A police officer makes the ultimate sacrifice in San Diego. And Telegram's CEO to remain in jail. We'll have details.
Children's book author Corey Richins can't stand trial in the death of her husband. I'm Ed Donahue.
Facebook chief admits to censoring content, but he regrets it. I'm tech correspondent Chuck Palm.
Yellowstone will continue even without Kevin Costner. I'm Kevin Carr.
Back after these messages. Thanks for listening and welcome back. You're with America in the Morning on where the potential for severe weather can erupt today. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Today's threat for severe weather extends to the I-95 corridor as a cold front dives to the south and east, crashing into a loaded air mass with plenty of heat and humidity in place to fuel some intense storms. From east central Illinois to southern lower Michigan, western Connecticut, much of Long Island and Maryland, and northern West Virginia, storms will be able to deliver hail, strong winds, and flooding downpours into the nighttime hours. To the north of that zone, spotty showers are expected from northern New York, Vermont, and New Hampshire through much of Maine, especially early in the day. A second zone of severe risk will set up from northern Nebraska across the Dakotas to western Minnesota as a separate storm pushes into the northern plains, bringing the chance for some tornadoes as well as damaging wind gusts and hail starting this afternoon. Between those two areas, hot and humid conditions continue today after Tuesday brought the hottest day of the year to cities such as Chicago. Speaking of heat, another day of strong and broad high pressure over the south means that the heat will roll on today, with AccuWeather real field temperatures of 105 to 110 degrees, looking to be widespread from the Texas coast across the Gulf Coast states into near coastal parts of the Carolinas and Virginia, as well as through much of Arkansas and western Tennessee, with the best chance for some temporary cooling from a downpour, most likely for areas near the Gulf Coast and into Florida. In the west, monsoon thunderstorms rebuild yet again from southern Colorado across much of New Mexico and eastern Arizona, with a powerful storm crossing along the Canadian border with Montana, able to spark some showers across mainly the eastern half of the state. That's the weather across America. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
I'm John Trout. Remember to follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani is in with a report that two former rivals are now on Donald Trump's presidential transition team, and J.D. Vance, campaigning in battleground Michigan, tried to portray Harris as someone who's not followed through on promises made to the Wolverine state.
The message from this crowd and this state of Michigan is you had your chance, you're failed, and we're not giving you a promotion. And Donald J. Trump is coming back to clean up your mess, Kamala Harris, and it's going to start right here in the state of Michigan.
Two former opponents have joined Donald Trump's presidential transition team. Both recently endorsed Trump. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. last week.
Bobby and I will fight together to defeat the corrupt political establishment and return control of this country to the people.
And Tulsi Gabbard yesterday.
I invite you to join me in doing all that we can to save our country and elect President Donald J. Trump.
Trump's campaign says it looks forward to having their powerful voices on a team planning for a future Trump administration.
She's a special person. She's got great common sense, great spirit. She loves our country, and she loves the people in this room. Tulsi Gabbard.
Gabbard ran for the Democratic nomination 4 years ago. Kennedy ended his independent run last week. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Meantime, the Harris campaign releases an ad touting plans for a middle-class tax cut and improved conditions for people to buy a new home. Correspondent Jennifer King reports the new ad comes as Kamala Harris and her running mate Tim Walz set out on a bus tour of Georgia, a state where recent polling shows Harris has been able to cut into Donald Trump's lead.
A new campaign ad titled Every Day gives a glimpse of how the Harris-Walz campaign intends to wrestle with the specter of inflation and housing affordability, top issues with voters.
Every day across our nation, families talk about their plans for the future. And they talk about how they're going to achieve them financially. And prices are still too high. When I am elected president, I will make it a top priority to bring down costs. We should be doing everything we can to make it more affordable to buy a home.
Harris says she also wants to go after corporate price gouging and expand the child tax credit. The ad is part of a blitz targeting battleground states and features clips from the vice president's speech in North Carolina, where she unveiled a series of proposals, like building 3 million new homes and having the government provide assistance to first-time homebuyers. Former President Donald Trump has said Harris can't pay for her housing agenda and suggests cracking down on illegal immigration would somehow help. Senator J.D. Vance, the Republican vice presidential nominee,
Prices are up.
At Vance's recent appearance in Asheboro, North Carolina, he went after the administration's record.
It is impossible for young Americans to find an affordable home to raise their families in.
Jennifer King, Washington.
A pinpoint raid by Israeli troops leads to a hostage being found alive and freed after more than 10 months in captivity. Correspondent Yosef Fetterman reports the man, a Bedouin Arab Israeli, has been reunited with his family.
The Army isn't saying much about this operation. It only says that the 52-year-old man was found in a tunnel in southern Gaza in what it says was a very complicated operation. The man has been identified as Qaid Farhan al-Qadi. He is a member of Israel's Bedouin Arab minority, and he was working as a security guard last October 7th when he was abducted with roughly 250 other people. Al-Qadi spoke to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu after his rescue from his hospital bed, thanked the Israeli leader for rescuing him, but he also reminded him that many others remain behind in captivity. His rescue has lifted spirits in a country that is wary after nearly 11 months of war. It also could put some pressure on Hamas during ongoing ceasefire talks. Al-Qadi is the 8th hostage to be rescued by Israeli forces, but Israel says that over 100 others remain in captivity. It estimates that at least a third of them have died, and it fears that that number could continue to rise.
Correspondent Yosef Fetterman. Escalation has been seen now on both sides as the Ukrainian offensive moves into Russia. Correspondent Clayton Neville has the latest.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky addressing a recent barrage of missile attacks across multiple regions of his country.
The missiles were launched from various locations, including the airspace over Kursk and Belgorod regions, other Russia's border areas, the Black Sea, and the territory of our occupied Crimea.
Zelensky says it'll take more ballistic weapons to continue progress in the offensive into Russia that has brought the capture of hundreds of Russian soldiers.
Each of these strikes repeatedly brings us back to the task of long-range capabilities, the need to provide our defense forces with enough long-range weapons that can destroy terrorists exactly in the areas of their strikes.
The chief of the United Nations Nuclear Agency visited the Kursk nuclear power plant in Russia this week. Moscow says that plant sits on the outskirts of the fighting and is at serious risk. Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Rafael Grossi.
This is why I am personally here, because I want to draw the attention of the international community about this, as I do in other parts of the world, and on the fact that basically never ever must or should a nuclear power plant be attacked in any way.
For 2 days straight, Russia's fired dozens of missiles and drones across Ukraine. According to Zelensky, some of those were shot down by F-16 fighter jets supplied by Western allies. Ukrainian forces grateful for the resources, but insisting more is needed. I'm Clayton Neville.
When we return on America in the Morning, grief book counselor alleged to have killed her spouse. Also, Mark Zuckerberg slams the Biden administration. Those stories and more after these messages. Welcome back. Here with America in the Morning, I'm John Trout. A San Diego police officer and a man in another vehicle died when that driver crashed into the officer's car following a high-speed chase. The wreck occurred after a police officer saw a vehicle traveling at a high rate of speed and tried to perform a traffic stop. That driver instead sped away at speeds so great that the police were forced to call off the pursuit. Soon after, the suspect rammed into a police car, killing one officer and sending another to a San Diego hospital fighting for his life. Police are expected to hold a news conference briefing on the situation later today. A French judge has extended police custody for Telegram's CEO. Correspondent Julie Walker reports the arrest of Pavel Durov is sparking outrage for the man who's nicknamed Russia's Mark Zuckerberg.
The founder and CEO of the messaging app and social media platform Telegram, Pavel Durov, remains in police custody in France after a judge there extended his detention. Durov was arrested Saturday on a warrant alleging that Telegram was used for money laundering, drug trafficking, and distributing child sex abuse material. Telegram says it abides by EU laws and its content moderation is within industry standards. Durov holds several citizenships, including Russian and French. The Russian government expressing outrage at his detention. The French president saying Durov's arrest wasn't political, but part of an independent investigation. I'm Julie Walker.
Prosecutors in Utah have made their case in the investigation of a mother and children's grief book author alleged to have poisoned her husband. Correspondent Ed Donahue reports a murder trial will now move forward.
Richen's book is about grief after her husband died. Prosecutor Brad Bloodworth says on Valentine's Day 2022, Richen slipped fentanyl into her husband's sandwich. He had a severe but non-fatal reaction. About 2 weeks later, Bloodworth says she tried again with 5 times the lethal dose of fentanyl.
Instead, she administered it with a lemon shot, where Eric Richens would throw it back all at once.
He was pronounced dead. Defense attorney Wendy Lewis argued police never found fentanyl in the Richens' home.
There's not one piece of evidence from Eric himself that he ever took anything from Corey that day.
She says detectives could not be certain the drugs Corey Richens bought from a housekeeper matched those found in Eric Richens' system. No trial date has been set. I'm Ed Donahue.
There's trouble at Chipotle as the eatery is being accused of violating a workers' unionization rights. Correspondent Lisa Dwyer reports.
The National Labor Relations Board says Chipotle may have violated federal labor law in its treatment of employees at its only unionized store out of 3,500 locations. The union alleges that Chipotle unlawfully disciplined an employee in Lansing, Michigan for engaging in union activity and told employees the company could not give them raises because they were unionized. Chipotle says that it respects workers' rights to organize, but Chipotle has violated labor law before. Last year, the chain agreed to pay $240,000 to former employees in Augusta, Maine. Chipotle closed that restaurant after workers there filed a petition for a union election. The National Labor Relations Board ruled that action illegal. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg is under scrutiny for a letter he sent to a congressional committee that said his company was pressured into censoring content by the Biden administration during the COVID pandemic and the 2020 election. Here's America in the Morning's Chuck Palm with the story.
In a letter dated August 26, Zuckerberg told the U.S. House of Representatives Judiciary Committee that he regretted not speaking up about this pressure earlier, as well as other decisions he made as the owner of Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp around removing certain content that the administration deemed to be misinformation or harmful about the coronavirus and vaccines. In July of 2021, President Biden said social media platforms like Facebook are killing people for allowing misinformation about the coronavirus and vaccines to be posted on their platforms. In the letter, Zuckerberg said his company was pressured into censoring content and the company would push back if it faced such demands again. Zuckerberg also expressed regret about demoting a New York Post story about Hunter Biden's laptop, initially thinking it may be Russian disinformation. In 2020, the billionaire contributed $400 million to support election infrastructure that drew criticism and lawsuits, saying that the move was partisan, a move he said they would not be repeating during this election cycle. I'm Chuck Palm.
We're up to midweek sports now with Robert Workman.
Baseball Tuesday, the Royals ripped the Guardians 6-1, so Kansas City and Cleveland now tied for the AL Central lead. KC was 7 games back at the All-Star break, but has gone 23-13 since. That's the best record in baseball. Phillies shut out the Astros 5-0. Aaron Nola and the Mardi Gras with a 6-hitter.
It just came down to executing my pitches and really trying to stay out the middle of the zone. And they hit a couple good pitches, but also some balls over the plate.
Nick Castellanos had a 3-run beignet. Braves blew a 4-0 lead, but came back to beat the Twins 8-6 in 10 innings. Cubs clocked the Pirates 9-5. They move above the 500 mark for the first time since May. Mets scored 6 times in the 5th and drilled the Diamondbacks 8-3. Marlins got 5 in the 9th to top the Rockies 9-8. Jesus Sanchez hit the go-ahead 3-run dinger. A's managed only 1 hit through the first 6 innings, then belted 3 home runs and shaded the Reds 5-4. Orioles nipped the Dodgers 3-2. Rays dropped the Mariners 3-2. Giants tripped the Brewers. Red Sox doubled up the Blue Jays. Nationals over the Yankees. Padres fought off the Cardinals, and the Tigers pounced on the Angels. Rangers and White Sox rained out. They'll play 2 today. Cut-down day in the NFL Tuesday. All rosters reduced to 53 players. The Browns kept 4 quarterbacks. Starter Deshaun Watson, backup Jameis Winston, plus Dorian Thompson-Robinson and Tyler Huntley, the latter 2 battling for that number 3 spot. The Jets sent return man Brandon Codrington to the Bills for a draft pick. It's the first trade between the AFC East rivals since 1987. U.S. Open Tennis Day 2, top seeds Jannik Sinner and Iga Swiatek won their opening matches, along with Carlos Alcaraz, Jessica Pegula, and 2-time Open champ Naomi Osaka on the comeback trail. That's Wednesday Sports.
Thank you, Robert. When we return on America in the Morning, tragedy for singer Mariah Carey, plus sting operation has a woman taking the law into her own hands. After these messages. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. A devastating day for singer Mariah Carey and her family, as her mother and sister are reported to have died on the same day. Entertainment correspondent Margie Zaraletta has details.
Mariah Carey says in a statement her heart is broken that she lost her mother Patricia this past weekend, and she feels blessed that she spent the last week with her. Carey says in a tragic turn of events, her sister Allison died on the same day. Carey did not give details on the deaths, but the Times-Union reports Allison died of complications with her organ function and had been in hospice. Carey's relationships with her mother and her sister have been complicated. She was largely estranged from her sister, but maintained contact with her mother. I'm Archie Zaraletta.
Well, TV's Yellowstone was a popular series facing the end of the line, but now it's getting a new lease on life. Kevin Carr has more.
It appears that Yellowstone may not be riding off into the sunset after all.
Ranching is only business where the goal is to break even, survive another season.
On Tuesday, Puck News reported that Paramount is in negotiations to continue Taylor Sheridan's popular neo-western into season 6. The future of the series has been up in the air since Kevin Costner decided not to continue his role as family patriarch John Dutton.
I don't regret one cent I've committed. It's the one I'm about to commit that worries me.
This summer, Costner officially announced his exit in order to focus on his Horizon films.
I just realized that I'm not going to be able to continue season 5B or into the future.
Paramount is reportedly in negotiations with fan favorites Kelly Riley and Cole Hauser to lead the series into season 6 as their characters Beth Dutton and Rip Wheeler.
What are you doing here?
Same thing I always do. Fixing something you couldn't.
Originally, rumors suggested that Riley and Hauser would move to the upcoming contemporary spin-off, The Madison, which is due in 2025. However, Paramount recently announced Michelle Pfeiffer and Matthew Fox would headline the series about a family from New York City living on a ranch in central Montana. Yellowstone already has the successful spin-offs 1883 and 1923, with both 1944 and 46s in development. The 6th season of Yellowstone will air this fall.
November 10th, the epic return of Yellowstone, only on Paramount Network.
I'm Kevin Carr.
Technology is often used to catch a thief, but in the case of a woman in California, she bypassed police and set up her own sting to catch the person stealing her mail. That operation revealed by correspondent Shelley Adler.
After having several items stolen from her mailbox at the Los Alamos post office, an unidentified woman decided to use Apple AirTags to catch the culprit. The tags are normally used to keep tabs on luggage. On Monday, the woman told sheriff's deputies her mail had been stolen again, including the package with the AirTag. Officials tracked the tag to a block in Santa Maria, about 16 miles from the post office, and arrested 2 suspects. They also found items believed to have been stolen from more than a dozen other people. I'm Shelley Adler.
America in the Morning for Wednesday, August 28th, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay, senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.